Tool Corner episode. Today, an episode that I've been asked several times now about a review of my Hammer C3 31 machine here and how I like it, and a bit of an overview of all the functions that the machine has and all that kind of stuff. So now what I can say is I have this machine for about 2.5 years by now, and I like it so far. It's a really nice machine, really rigid, and for me it's a good price quality equivalent. So you get something for your money. That's what I'm after. So now I personally have the machine in the so-called comfort configuration. So there are 3 different styles of machine that you can get off the shelf, and other optional things that you can get with the machine that's not inside these packages. Now I decided for me to get the comfort edition because you get it with the 2-meter sliding table, 2000 millimeters exactly, and the outfeeding cable with the fans. Now let's get a bit more inside this machine. You have 3 motors for the 3 different options that you have. You have 1 motor for the saw, 1 motor for the planer, and 1 motor for the shaper. Now each of these motors is a 400 volt 3-phase motor with each 4 horsepower. It's really rigid machines and really nice and beefy motors. Now I don't know exactly how it is in the US, if you can get it with 120 and 230 volts as it is in the US. I'm not exactly sure how this works, but here in Austria and Europe we have 220 1-phase and 400 volt 3-phase power, and almost every household is supplied with a 3-phase power, so you won't have any problem getting this machine to run, even if in a small shop as you have it in your basement or in your garage. Now let's change the position of the camera, and I'll bring you to the saw and show you some features about the saw. So let's get started with the saw blade itself. The saw blade itself is covered underneath this panel here, which is also protected via a safety switch for accidental turn on. So the saw blade is running on a arbor, which is driven by a belt from the motor, and here you can see how this works a little bit. Now here underneath this cover runs a belt, the motor is underneath and turns the arbor, which then turns the blade itself. Now it's a really heavy construction, shouldn't be any problem with it, even if you're cutting big logs or something along those lines. So if you change the saw blade, nothing easier than that. Just put it in, set it on the indexing pins, put on the plate and screw it in. That is. Also here you can adjust the splitter, which is also mounted on a nice bracket here. You can put it down if you want to cut an deadu, or you put it in a standard position over over the saw blade, and it works also. So you can fit here 250 to 315 millimeter saw blades in various configurations, whatever you are cutting, and this will fit your perfect. Now, the sliding table itself sits on nice roller bearings, linear roller bearings, which makes it really easy to slide. Even if you have some heavy plates on this thing, it slides really nice and very precision. It sits on this heavy aluminum ground block here, which is one giant thing, extruded aluminum with special steel inlays here for the roller bearings, so you don't have a problem that it wear out. It is made for that, and I haven't got any problem with this till now. And next we have the outfitting table. You can adjust the position of the outfitting table on the sliding table via these two knobs here. Just position it on the position you wanted it, and you're ready to go. Also, you can change the direction of the crosscut fence. I personally like it more if the crosscut fence is in the front, but you can change it, flip it over to have it sit here on the back and shaft the part through the saw blade. The outfitting table itself is supported by this beam here in the bottom. It's also with roller bearings. Give it nice rigidity here on the outside of the crosscut on the outfitting table, and you're ready to go. Also, you have here your mitter gauge. You can adjust your mitter of the crosscut fence via the scale here, and also you have indexing positions of your mitter for every 5 degrees, so you can set it to 45 degrees here. And it will stay in this position, and you can cut your frames or whatever you want to cut for every 5 degrees, or for 22.5 degrees you also have your indexing pin, so you can cut octagons. The crosscut fence itself has a nice scale on it, which you can adjust if it runs out of precision. You can adjust the position of the scale itself, and you have your nice fence stops here, which you can adjust either in inches or metric to the position you wanted it, and flip it away if you don't need it, so you can make your first cut a bit wider than it should be, then put in your fence stop, and you have your final cut. You can also install several of those if you have more measurements that you want to adjust. You can put several of those on here, and you don't have to set it to different directions. Now we come to the whip fence. The whip fence itself has, in this case, two different uses. Either you can use it here for as whip fence for the saw itself, or you can flip it over and use it as a planar fence with the adjustment of the angle. There's a dedicated whip fence for the saw itself, and I wanted to buy one of those, but I never came across to buy one. It's not that expensive, costs about 150 euro or something along those lines, and is way more convenient than this one, because this is with the angle adjustment and all that kind of stuff. It's a bit bulky and not that nice to use, because you have a set screw here to set it to the position. The other one has a lever to clamp it in position, it's way better in my opinion, and of course, as mentioned, I want to buy one of those. Now, but this also works as a whip fence, and you won't have problems to use it. You can adjust the whip fence from 0 to about 600 millimeters. The scale isn't longer than that, but I guess this is more than enough for the usual woodworker in your home shop, of course. So now we come to the settings of the saw blade itself. You have one crank here and one crank on the side of the machine. With this one you can set your height of the saw blade itself. The saw blade, if you have a 350 mm saw blade inside the machine, you can set it up to 103 mm of cutting height, and one resolution of this crank is about 8 mm on the saw blade height. Also, if you put this crank away and put it on the arbor on the outside, you can adjust the miter of the saw itself. So you loosen this knob here, and can adjust the miter by turning this crank here on the side. Goes from 0 to 45 degrees. The dust collector connection for the saw itself is here on the back, on the bottom of the machine. Goes through a tube up to the saw blade and will extract all the dust. Again, 120 millimeters connection, nice and solid, and should work pretty well. Now, before we go to the planer, here's a little overview of the controls of the machine. It's very simple. You just have an on and off button and your switch, which you can choose your functions that you want to use for your saw, for your planer, and for your shaper in 2 different directions. So you can use it clockwise and counterclockwise with a safety guard here in the middle, which you have to activate to change direction on the shaper, because if you use it in clockwise, so more or less put the part in direction of the shaper, you have to use a power feeder or something, so if you don't accidentally activate it in the wrong direction if you don't have a power feeder. Now that's it. We also have a emergency stop on the saw blade on the saw side, and a stop button on the side of the planer. So now first a little overview of the planer itself. The surface you have, the table you have, is 1400 by 310 millimeters. Nice cast iron solid table. The fence, which you have seen as whip fence for the table saw, you can use it as a, as mentioned, as a planer fence with 1150 millimeters length and 150 meters of height, and an angle adjustment from 0 to 45 degrees. The motor of the machine sits in the base of the machine. Also a 4 horsepower or 3 kilowatt motor, really nice beefy motor. More than enough to use it for the machine, and be bad to give a problem. Now let's have a look at the surface planer itself. The surface planer itself is capable from cutting up to a width of 310 millimeters. That's why the name C3 31 centimeters. But effective you can use about 300 millimeters. That's about the maximum you can practically use. With this crank here, you can adjust the depth of your cut, how many material you want to remove, from 0 up to 4 millimeters. you can remove material. It depends on how hard your wood is. With softwood you can remove easier more material. With hardwood I would not recommend to go to the maximum, about to 2.5 millimeters, and you're ready to go. Now let's flip the table over and have a look at the cutting block itself. So here we have our cutter block for this machine. It's a 3-knife self-adjusting fast change cutter block. So you have 3 knives in 120 degrees resolution. That's very nice because you don't have to measure the blades every time you change them. They're preset here at the factory with these 4 set screws, and you just have to change the blade. Those are indexed on these blocks here, and change it with new ones and screw it in there, and you're ready to go. Now let me show you how this works and how easy it is to change these blocks. So you just have to undo these 4 screws here in the cutter block itself, remove this whole block, and as you can see, you have your knife here, which is indexed on this block with 4 set screws, or 4 indexing pins, I meant. Just put it on these 5 indexing pins, and you can see these 4 set screws are already preset at the factory to the appropriate size, to the appropriate position. Then put it in there, and as you fasten the 4 screws here, the blade is already in the final position, and you don't have to worry about the position of the blade itself. Now, if after the time this gets out of the spot where it should be, you can adjust them as well, or let them adjust by the guy who installed the machine. Definitely the better approach, because I don't know how to measure these things to get it in the right position. Now let's go to the thickness planer. You flip over the hood for the dust collector, and now here you have your table for the thickness planer and your scale for the adjustment of the height, how many material you want to remove. So you crank it up. Also available is here a scale, which is a dial more or less, which you can adjust your height more precision than the scale here. Then you lock your table in place, and with this crank here you can activate and deactivate the power feed of the planer itself, which works directly driven by the motor with about 6 meters per minute. The table itself has a length of 540 millimeters, and you can plane up to about 300 millimeters. 306 millimeters to be exact, but again about 300 millimeters is so the maximum you can get without having problems at the end. Now the maximum height you can run through your thickness planer is 225 millimeters, so enough space for the most of the applications. The dust collector also works very well. Didn't have any problems with get stuck on chips or something along those lines. You have a 120 millimeters connection here to stuck your dust collector on, and no problems at all. For the planer itself, you have the same hood, either flipped over if you have a thickness planing job, or flipped down and you have the same hood underneath the table with the same connection if you use it as a surface. So if you want to put your machine back to surface planing, you want to flip your table down, there's a nice little safety feature here. You have this lever to put it up, and then you can put your table down. So you don't have to be worried about the table falling on your head if you're working or something along those lines. It's thought about the safety of this machine. Also, the table itself is spring-loaded, so you don't have to hold the whole weight of the table if you flip it down or up, so that the springs take the majority of the weight of the table itself. You just have to flip it. The table is locked via these levers here, so you put it up and then it comes out spring-loaded, and if you want to lock the table, you put it in and then put it down, and it is locked very nice and solid, so you don't have to worry about your table wobbling around. For safety reasons, you have this safety guard here over the saw blade or the planer blade itself. You can adjust it in various directions. You can adjust it here up to the fence, and you can adjust the height of the thing itself. Depends on how thick the material is that you want to plane. So you can see here it goes up and down if I turn this knob here. And of course you can flip it completely out of the way. As you've seen on my videos, I mostly work like this without any safety guards. I know it's not the best way to do it, but yeah, what should I say? Now that's for the planer, I guess. Now let's get over to the shaper. So to properly work with the shaper, I mostly remove the outfitting table. It's not that hard to do. You just have to unscrew these two knobs here, and then slide it out of the sliding table. And flip the support beam onto the machine. This is nice, fixed via magnet, and it won't get in your way as you work on the shaper itself. Now here we are at our molder. The molder spindle itself sits underneath this cover here, and the easiest way to remove it is to crank the spindle up till you can grab the cover itself and remove it. The spindle I have mounted on my machine is the standard 30mm spindle with a usable height of 100mm. You have different spacers to adjust it for different tools. In this case here, molder tool, a fold molder tool with 125mm in diameter and 50mm in height, with the 30mm bore in the middle. I have this used a lot. It's a very nice tool. I also have a set of different shaping tools for the different contours you want to mold out of your stuff. The machine standardly comes with this fence here. You can use the fence for almost every standard cutting options you want to make. So you can adjust the fence guides as near as possible to your cutter. Get it as near as possible to this. You can of course adjust the height on your cuts that you want to make. and you also have the ability to adjust this fence to this fence, collinear or offset. I personally think this serves the purpose, but it is a bit tricky to use, and yeah, not that well engineered, I have to say, because to set up the offset is really hard to adjust. You need some, even if this is a hand knob to adjust it, it's really hard to adjust. So I guess this could be made better, but yeah, I guess it's okay for the purpose you have it. Also, it comes with the safety equipment appropriate. So you have your down holder and your safety guards for your parts. That works pretty well. Nothing to complain about it. It's, of course, it's a bit tricky to adjust, but yeah, I guess it's okay for this. You can adjust the speed of the cutter to 4 different speeds. You have 3000, 6000, 8000 and 10,000 RPMs for the cutter. You just have to open this hatch here. That's also connected to the safety switch. So to open the door, you have to put it in safe mode. Then you can open the door, and you just put the belt to the appropriate pulley, and you get the different speeds like here on the chart. Really easy and nice to do. And of course, put your switch back to the working position. One addition that I gave my machine, which is pretty handy, of course in a little shop like I have, where you have your machine not always in the same place, is the rolling carriage. It gives the ability to lift the machine and move it out of the way, roll it out of the way. Keep in mind, this machine has about 600 kilos, so it's not that you take it and lift it over. You have to use some kind of either a forklift or something along those lines to move it. But with this rolling carriage and the lifting bar which comes with it, it's really nice, and for one man able to move the machine out of the way. And of course, if you want to cut bigger parts, you need to put it in a different angle to the wall, so you don't get stuck on other things or on the walls itself. So now I guess that's all the features of the machine. I hope I didn't miss anything major. Some guys have also asked me, would I buy a Felder or would I recommend a hammer? And for me, it was the time I bought this clear. I would like the Felder, but I haven't got the money to buy me a Felder. So the hammer is a super machine. You get almost a Felder, but not the newest Felder. So you get a Felder from about 10 years ago or something along those lines. Felder is always the bleeding edge technology, the newest technology. The most development goes into the Felders. Of course, it's all one company. They don't build the newest technology in the sub brand. So let's say so. Now, for me, if I had the money and don't worry about them being 1.5 times the price, I would buy me a Felder, just because of the motor. The motor, in my opinion, is way better on the Felder, but for me the most important things were the saw and planer. so I wasn't that worried about the motor itself. The saw and the planer is still nearly the same as the Felder. The Felder have a bit more new features, but I don't worry about them. Also, you can get a bit more accessories and more options that you can build into the machine with servo drive, so your saw blades sets to the depth you wanted it to automatically and all that kind of stuff. I'm not worried about this. It's a hobby for me, and I'm not a professional woodworker which works every day 8 or 10 hours on this machine. So yeah, it's for a hobby worker, for a hobby woodworker, it's the best choice, the hammer. And if you have the money to spend the Felder, go for it, do it, and yeah, have fun with the machine. But I guess for the most guys out there, the hammer is almost the best you can get. Now, yeah, I guess that's it. Leave me some comments. How do you like this review? Give a thumbs up if you do like it. Also leave some comments if you have one of those, if you have a different brand, what's your experience with those, and yeah, keep in contact. Now, what I have to say is, have a nice day, see you on the next project, and may the Weasel be with you.